Moving on real quick to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, for some reason, cannot stay out of the headlines, especially during the offseason. It's kind of crazy, but for the Jets, they kind of live to steal headlines. Ever since they got Rodgers, it seems like all they've been trying to do is steal headlines. Ever since Rodgers got injured last year, going 4 snaps in, we just been hearing about him. He's rehabbing really fast. His foot is better. He's back on the field. He's running. He's doing unprecedented things. Oh, maybe he's coming back when the whole time he really was not coming back because he had a torn Achilles, guys. Like, that's not something easy to come back from in a matter of months, especially when you're 40 years old, I would imagine. But all season long, it was like the specter of Aaron Rodgers being on the field, not being in a boot, not being in crutches, being in Zach Wilson's ear, tempting us all with the idea of him possibly coming back and maybe making a run with the Jets. It was never going to happen, but that's what Aaron Rodgers does. But nonetheless, the saga picks up with mandatory minicamp. Now, there's two sides to look at this. It's June, it's minicamp. I know it's mandatory, but Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old. He's been through enough. He's been through a lot of off seasons. He's been through a lot of off season training programs, mini camps, training camps, the whole nine. Many will say this is not a big deal. I am one of those people where I look at it and say, okay, it may not be a big deal to the vast majority who have watched football and know that Aaron Rodgers is really good and that he'll be ready for week one. But here's where I get a little tied up with it. And it's like, okay, I see why people would say that this is a bad look. You're Aaron Rodgers. You're supposed to be the starting quarterback and the leader of this team. You're the one that young receivers like Garrett Wilson and young players like Breece Hall look up to. Players on the defensive end, Sauce Gardner, Quentin Williams, they're all looking up to you because you won a Super Bowl championship. They want what you have, and they are excited to have you there because they think you have a legit chance of bringing one to the New York Jets. And you were quoted saying all this stuff about how like everyone needs to be locked in and focused. Keep all the football things about football. If something's not about football, it doesn't need to be in the building. Well, you've done the opposite. What you've done is you brought an unnecessary distraction. First, it was you skipping out on well, you were there for OTAs, but then there's a minicamp. There's a reason why it's called mandatory. Now, I get that you're Aaron Rodgers. You have some cachet. It won't be a big deal if you miss it. But it's a big deal from the perspective of the younger players that are watching you and want what you have. And you saying everything that you're saying about accountability, being there for the team, being all about football. Well, why weren't you there? From all the reports, there was nothing about any illnesses, any serious illnesses in your family or anything like that. There was nothing wrong with you as far as illness or injury. So why weren't you there? A lot of people with that old school mindset, so to speak, and even for me, like if something says mandatory, for me that means be there. Even with optional, that means be there. Because you're trying to set a culture, you're trying to set an example and build habits, get repetition, and get rapport with your receivers that you have here. Because you weren't there last year, you didn't play. So all that being said, it's tricky for me. Like I can see it on both sides. Like one side, it's like okay, it's Aaron Rodgers, it's not a big deal. It's the NFL season doesn't start in June, blah blah blah. Doesn't start until August, September. It's gonna be fine. He'll be there for practice and training camp and all that stuff. I see all that. But on the other hand, it's like you're a leader of this team, and players are looking up to you about how to carry yourself on a day to day, how to prepare yourself to win football games and become a Super Bowl champion. Those are the things that I think Aaron Rodgers is missing here. Now, look, I don't know why. I don't know what the reason was. The Jets know. No one really knows what was going on. The only thing that we do know is that mandatory means you got to be there. You got to set the example. You got to lead and show these young guys how to go about their business day to day. And you weren't there. So in a lot of people's eyes, that's a bad look for the position that you're in. But because of the position that you're in, being 40 years old, being the Super Bowl champion, being one of the legendary quarterbacks of this game, a lot of people may look at it as like, okay, so what? He missed minicamp. He's still Aaron Rodgers. I just think there's two sides to really look at it here. Was it a lot? Is it too much noise being brought up about it? Maybe. Might be a little bit too much noise being brought up about it. But I think about what if that was Josh Allen? What if that was Lamar Jackson? What if that was Trevor Lawrence? guys that got paid but didn't show up for the mandatory stuff? What if it had been Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts? Will we still say it's no big deal? Will we not really go in an uproar about it? Or are we going to hold them to the same accountability that we should? Did Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, the other legends of the game that have long retired, did they do the same thing? We talk about putting Aaron Rodgers in that category. Well, the talent that he has is crazy that he only has one Super Bowl. But now we're talking about other things that ain't got nothing to do with football.